If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Wednesday. About half the work week in the rearview mirror. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Got Jacob Beck and Kathy Spazzali back there on the ones and twos, and happy that you are here with us. We got a lot to do here over the next couple of hours. Koki Riley from The Advocate with us in 15 minutes talking LSU baseball. They got a really nice win over UNO last night. Now they turn their attention to Austin, Texas, the first SEC road trip of the year. We'll talk to Koki about all that in 15 minutes. It's a What If Wednesday. We're going to talk some hockey in What If Wednesday because there's hockey stuff going on if you're not paying attention. Jaxson darts, he makes sense in New Orleans. I'll give you my thoughts on that. Matthew Bruni at 2 o'clock talking basketball. How do the Lady Tigers match up with their pod this weekend in Baton Rouge? I've got thoughts on LSU's win yesterday against UNO. We got to get our SEC baseball power rankings. Am I still holding on to hope for Texas A&M? We will talk about that at 2:30. So plenty to do. Let's start things the way we start every single day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
Yesterday, I talked a little bit about some of my takeaways from speaking with the LSU football players in post-practice media availability. And we talked a little bit about the defensive backs. We let Mansour Delane talk a little bit about kind of restoring the talent to DBU, and talked about DJ Pickett a little bit. And today I thought I would take another big takeaway that I had from yesterday, which is kind of a mentality thing with the LSU football team as they get into spring. And again, we're talking about media conversation, not necessarily actual results that we're looking at on the field. And I haven't been at every minute of every practice, but it was evident to me in speaking with Jack Pyburn and in speaking with Bauer Sharp that there is a significant shift and a significant push towards sincere physicality on the offensive side of the football for this LSU football team. We know that LSU didn't run the ball worth a flip last year. There's a reason why LSU was second in the SEC in passing yards. LSU was second in the SEC in completions. LSU was seventh in the SEC in total offense, but fell well behind that in scoring offense. LSU was the best third down team in the conference last year. LSU was sixth best in the country on third down, but didn't score at the clip you would want because you were bad in the red zone because you couldn't run the ball. Dead last in the SEC in running the football. That creates red zone inefficiency. That means you're not scoring touchdowns when you need to. That means you're not scoring enough points. That ultimately means you're not going to win enough games. And we all saw that last year. All of us. So I'm not breaking any news to you there. You know LSU didn't run it worth a flip last year. The question is, can they do that this year? And I don't know the answer to that. And we may not find out until they play Clemson. We may not find out until a little bit later in the season. I feel good about the passing game. I think Nussmeier will be great. I think they've got some real players at wide receiver. I like the talent at running back. I wish they had a little bit more depth, but I like the talent. Question is, can they be physical enough up front at the point of attack to make things happen and run the ball? And they're trying. I'll tell you this. One thing that we have seen in our practice viewing is a little bit of a different look from the offense. We saw a lot of 2 tight end sets on yesterday. A lot of them. Saw some 2 tight end sets in an abbreviated period on Saturday. And you're seeing Bauer Sharp in there, and you're seeing Trey'Dez Green in there, and Donovan Green is available. He's a big physical tight end from Texas A&M, but they're showing a lot of 2 tight end looks. And they're also showing an ability to run the ball from under center, which is not something we have seen really at all the last few years. And I'm not sold that's a terrible idea, because you saw you could run the ball 2 years ago with Jaden Daniels in the spread because he made front sevens panic. Like, you had to account for him at all times. And so you could just kind of get into a wide set and run the zone read and let the offensive lineman just kind of push and let the back find his way, and it worked out. And when it didn't work out running the ball with the running backs, Jaden just tucked it and ran for 1,000 yards on Florida. That aspect is gone. You have to find a way to run the ball with the running backs. You have to find a way to run the ball when they know you're running the ball. You have to find a way to run the ball on first down. You got to find a way to run the ball on 3rd and short. You got to find a way to run the ball in the red zone. And one adjustment we never really saw last year was running from under center. They did it a couple of times, but not a lot.
Remember the wing tee?
I did remember the wing tee, and that's part of it, and it didn't really work. But I'm okay trying things in the spring and trying to be more physical. And I liked our conversation with Bauer Sharp yesterday. He said, look, I get up and go to practice every day, and I pat those 5 guys on the helmet that are the offensive line, and I say, we're going to go as you go. You set the tone for the day. You set the tone for the offense. It's not Nuss. It's not Joe Sloan. It's not the wide receivers. It's the offensive line has to set the tone for the day. And then we talked to Jack Pyburn, and if you want to read some of the quotes that he had, you can find it at LouisianaSports.net, where I wrote a story this morning. But he said, like, to these guys' credit, like, they're coming out every day, and they're firing off the ball. And it's better than it was last year when we played against LSU. Now, I have my doubts that this new offensive line is significantly better on March the 19th than the 5 guys that LSU had out there in November of last year. I may be wrong. I've got my doubts about that. Jack Pyburn was on Florida's team at that point. Now he's on LSU's team. It behooves him to speak positively about his teammates. So I'm not going to necessarily etch this in stone that Jack Pyburn said they've been out there in spring football for a week and a half, and this offensive line is kicking butt in a way that last year's didn't. I'm not there, okay? But it's evident that there is an absolute commitment to trying to get this fixed. And that's the first thing that's got to happen. I mentioned this on Twitter last week when I saw some things, and like, talking doesn't get things done. But at least they are talking about it. You never heard, and I hate to keep going back to this, but it's what we have. It's what we have to go off of. If I go back to 2016, 17, 18, 16, 17, you don't have a lot of Les Miles going, yeah, you know, we ran it a little bit too much. We got to spread the field. We got to chuck it down the field. We've got to throw the football for 275 yards per game if we're going to be better. Like, he never said that. So there's no reason for me to sit back and believe, yeah, they're going to really change the way they do things. They are making a commitment to getting better at this and this and this. He never said that. This team is telling you, we know we've got to run it better. And the defensive guys are telling you, those guys are coming to work every day. And Jack Pyburn prides himself. He told us this yesterday. He prides himself on his ability to set the edge of the point of attack, to manhandle offensive linemen, and to get guys on the ground. And I don't think he's going to go up there and be like, yeah, these guys are awesome, if he's crushing them every day and realizes that these guys can't hold me. Again, that's just speculation on my part because I don't know for sure. But I liked Bauer Sharp saying we talk to these offensive linemen every day, and we're going to go up there and be physical. And he talked about his relationship with Alex Atkins. And if you're not completely familiar with Alex Atkins, you're trying to ease back into football. Alex Atkins comes over from Florida State, where he was their offensive coordinator. Now, Mike Norvell called the plays, but he's also their offensive line coach. So your tight ends coach that's coaching Trey'Dez Green and coaching Bauer Sharp and coaching Donovan Green and will coach J.D. LaFleur, who weighs 265 pounds, has coached offensive linemen his career. So you've got a guy coaching the tight ends that's got an edge to him, that knows the run game, that wants to run the ball. I don't think I'm reaching here. I've never proclaimed, LSU is going to be dominant up front this year. Yeah, LSU is going to switch from a pass-first offense to a run-first offense. I don't believe either of those things. I think LSU is going to be a team whose offensive identity is more so in the passing game than the running game. That's what happens when you've got a fifth-year senior quarterback who just threw for 4,000 yards, who's a potential first-round pick, and you've got a ton of guys on the edge with great speed and playmaking ability. You're not just going to ignore that, but you've got to be a little bit more balanced than what you were last year. And there's no way to get there unless you commit to it. And I can't speak to the end result based on watching 2 hours of practice thus far and talking to 4 guys yesterday. But I can tell you that it's evident that these guys who just got here, in Bauer Sharp and Jack Pyburn, are telling me, at practice, we're getting after it in the run game. And these guys are buying into it, and they want to do it, and we know how important that's going to be. I don't think we're going to get any answers this fall, and I'm not really asking in fall. Any answers this spring. And I'm not asking for answers right now in the spring. Spring is for positivity. Spring is for a little bit of a lack of intensity in terms of game planning. Spring is for experimenting to a degree. And LSU, it looks like, is doing a good bit of that. But we all know as we sit back here and look from afar, y'all better get this figured out, or it's going to be another season that ends in disappointment. There are a number of things LSU's got to get better at as a program. They've got to stop the run better. They've got to cover better. But they've got to block and run the ball better on the offensive side of the ball. And Garrett Nussmeier's got to turn it over less frequently. There are a lot of things they've got to correct. But, man, it might be number one on the list that you've got to run the ball better. Because you have no chance if you don't have a running threat. There's no better illustration of LSU's inability to run the ball and what that can ultimately mean for your offense than the second half against Texas A&M last season. Once A&M realized that LSU couldn't run it, and they let those guys pin their ears back, it doesn't matter if Will Campbell's the 4th pick in the draft and Emory Jones is the 38th pick in the draft and Miles Frazier started 40 games. None of that matters because they're just going to be able to pin their ears back and go at a quarterback who moves okay, not great, and it was a disaster, and LSU couldn't move the ball. They've got to get it fixed. And I don't know if they will, but they're certainly trying. If you'd like to read a little bit more about it, you can certainly do that at LouisianaSports.net. I've got some quotes in there from Jack Pyburn and Bauer Sharp that I think illustrate it pretty nicely. All right, that's our Genesis opening drive here on this Wednesday. We'll step aside when we come back. Koki Riley talking baseball. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is the website. Jonathan Carver and his team, just fantastic folks to work with. There are alternative solutions in the insurance world that you may not have been exposed to if you're a business owner or a CFO or whoever, risk manager that may deal with your company's insurance program. Have you explored a captive? Now, the captive is specifically designed for those who spend a significant amount in insurance. That threshold changes depending on the captive, but it's not for the BOP policy that costs you, 4 figures a year. This is for some folks that are in some more risky situations, more bigger business models. If you have not explored a captive and you're thinking, man, maybe that's something that could save me significant amount on my insurance, explore it. Jonathan Carver and his team at the Highland Insurance Group do it all the time. So if you haven't looked into it, Jonathan Carver and his team are happy. They're at the Highland Insurance Group right here in Baton Rouge. They're statewide, can help you anywhere you are in the state of Louisiana. Look at a captive, see if it might be a right fit for you and your business. The Highland Insurance Group, check them out online at HighlandIG.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Hope your Wednesday is going quite nicely. Ours certainly is here at 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. We got a lot to do. Jaxson Dart, does he make sense for the New Orleans Saints in the top 10 of the draft? I'll talk about that at the end of hour number 1. Matthew Bruni is going to be talking hoops with us at 2 o'clock. We got SEC baseball power rankings coming up at 2:30. Had some shifts. I'm looking at my power rankings here. Let's see how many big movers. What I would classify as big movers. There's like 4 or 5 spots. I would say there's one right there. That's one. There's 2. I would say there's 3 big movers this week for SEC baseball power rankings. We'll talk about that in the second hour. LSU baseball gets a win last night against UNO, and I'll tell you, that was a nice win. I mean, I don't think UNO is very good. Their record, I told you this yesterday, when I knew that they had lost to West Georgia or whatever that was, I was like, man, that's going to be a disastrous season. And I hadn't paid attention to UNO baseball in 4 weeks since. And so I was surprised to see they had a winning record. They were coming off a sweep, and they had a winning record in 9 conference games as well. But they came out last night, and they greeted Jaden Newt with 3 base runners. Drew a leadoff walk, got a couple singles. All of a sudden, it's 1-0. UNO, LSU doesn't have an out, and you're like, well, you get the sweep of SEC play. You've got another big weekend of travel coming up with Texas on the horizon, and UNO's playing good baseball. They just came off a sweep. Like, you may have your hands full. And from that point, where they had the first 3 guys on base, scored a run, had 2 on with nobody out, LSU absolutely, totally, and completely dominated the baseball game. And that's what they should do. But when they do it, I'm going to point it out. And Newt struck out the next 3 on straight changeups, all 3 of them, which has become a really nice weapon for him. He used the slider a little bit, and the fastball is still good enough at 92, 93. But the changeup is his best pitch. And when it's a good one, he gets a lot of sink at like 84, 85. When he kind of doesn't quite get it exactly like he likes it, it drifts a little bit at 88. But it was good. And he got through 4 innings last night. They really they let him go. And they got him through 4 innings, took him out. And Jay Johnson said on the post game they felt like they could potentially use him over the weekend in a late weekend spot, because they got him out of the ball game. But then you turn the ball over to Jacob Myers, who was really good. It was as clean an outing as he's had this year. The strikeout numbers were up, obviously. The fastball was really, really good. And what I've found with Myers is that he's not even really throwing a lot of breaking balls. When you look at his videos and his highlight tapes from Nichols, specifically you go and watch him in the game against Alabama in the regional where he pitched against them, like he really threw a lot of breaking balls. He has not thrown a lot of breaking balls for this LSU team, and he hasn't needed to. He's got that 95-mile-an-hour fastball, and it's been good enough. I thought he was great. I thought Cooper Williams threw it great. And we'll talk about the offense in hour number 2, but I thought that was really good as well. I thought it was a really nicely played game by LSU, and they get out of there in 7 innings with an 11-1 victory. Koki Riley was there. He covers the LSU baseball team for The Advocate. Joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Koki, how are you? I don't think that's Koki. That sounds like a dial tone to me. So we'll try to get him. That was like an SNL bit or something where like we went right to the phone line and it was just off.
Yeah.
So, look, we'll get Koki hooked up here in a second. But like, I thought the pitching was really good. And ideally, when an LSU taxed their bullpen over the weekend, when your starter on Saturday and your starter on Sunday both go 3 1/3, you've got to use a lot of arms, and they did. And they had to use Primo in all 3 games, and they had to use Zach Cowan for an extended number of pitches on 2 different occasions. And you did have to use your closer in Casey Evans for 44 pitches in the game on Saturday. So they had used a lot of their guys, and when you can win a midweek game as convincingly as LSU did by just using the back end of your pitching staff, like that's a really quality way to go about your schedule. When you can win a midweek game without using Casey Evans and without using Zach Cowan, that's good. Didn't have to use William Schmidt, which I thought he would pitch. I thought it would be a good time to get him out there and get his feet wet. And maybe he would have if LSU didn't walk it off. Jay Johnson said in the post game, he's like, hey, I hate these run rule games because I've got things I want to do in the late innings and can't do it when you run rule. But you didn't have to use your big guns. And I think that's a good thing for LSU as they get ready for Texas. We'll try again with Koki Riley, again on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Koki, you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Awesome. So I was just kind of opining on last night's game. it's a game that we won't remember 3 months from now. But I thought they played really well, and they didn't have to use their big guns right before they go to Austin, and they hit the ball like they've been doing for 3 weeks. So your overall impressions on last night?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate way to say it. 4 home runs and just sort of showing that they still have that power element to go along with a lot of small ball they've been playing lately. Obviously they're walking a ton still. They're getting hit by pitches. Every inning it feels like they have guys on base. They're putting guys in scoring position, and when you're doing that, runs you're gonna sort of like, fall into runs, and that's kind of what's been happening. And then on the pitching side, also kind of like what you said, like you didn't really use any of your major weekend arms. Jay Newt through 4 innings looked pretty good. Kept his pitch count low enough to where he could potentially pitch on a Sunday. Everything just sort of worked out for them. And I think Jacob Myers had a pretty interesting performance because that's a guy who is really, really good stuff, has had a lot of trouble finding the strike zone. 8 walks in 5 2/3 innings, but at the same time, he has 10 strikeouts. So it's either a walk or a strikeout. And last night there were more strikeouts. So, it was a good overall performance.
Are you on the positive side of the weekend sweep of Missouri? But I've got folks in my Twitter mentions that are saying it was a disaster. So how do you feel about LSU's performance against Missouri?
Well, it definitely wasn't a disaster.
Yeah.
I will say that. I think it was. I think workmanlike's the good way to put it. I think offensively they were more than good enough. 12 runs in the first game, 10 runs in the third game, even 7 runs in the second game wasn't fantastic, but it's still enough to win most games. So I don't think you can really make a real complaint about what they've been doing on offense. Pitching wise, I think there are definitely things to work on, definitely things that they should have done better or could have done better. I think Cade Anderson was as good as you could ask for on a Friday. But Anthony Einstein and Chase Shores, I think they just need more innings from those guys, need better production from those guys. I think they can definitely get that from Einstein, someone who had 15 strikeouts in his previous start, someone who looked really good in 3 innings against Nebraska. But he's got to locate his stuff, and if he's not locating his stuff, he has a chance to. There's always a chance that he gets hit hard, sort of like he did in that game against Missouri. And I think some credit should be given Missouri's bats. I thought they looked a little bit better than I thought they would. But I think I can pitch better. I think Chase Shores can pitch better. I don't think Shores was actually that bad. It was just an inefficient performance where the command was never really totally there. He just wasn't getting hit as hard as he did in his last 2 starts. So I think that was kind of a good sign for him. But it's just the strikes, and finding that consistency on an inning-to-inning basis. We just really haven't seen that since the first outing, and maybe something had to do with that just because they were playing Purdue Fort Wayne. But I kind of digress. And then on the bullpen side, I think people are ragging on the bullpen a little bit too much just because they had to pitch more innings when, your Saturday and your Sunday guys don't throw as much. Neither guy gets out of the 4th inning. You have to rely on that bullpen a little bit more. And guys in the bullpen, there's a decent chance those guys are in the pen because they don't have quite the command that the starters do. So you should expect at least some more walks, but maybe not quite as many walks that they had, especially for a stretch of time there in that Saturday game where they walked 6 guys in 3 innings. Like that just can't really happen. But I thought overall the bullpen was pretty solid. Things that they could obviously do better. I mean, hopefully you can sort of limit the home runs a little bit too, because I think they gave up 3 over the weekend, which is a decent number. So I think overall it was a pretty good weekend for LSU against Missouri. There's definitely things to improve on the pitching side though.
DJ Primo went in all 3 games. That's not something I thought would happen in a league series as of a month ago. Where do you land on his usage moving forward?
I think they're going to keep on using him because they just don't have a lot of lefties, and it looks like Cooper Williams has kind of been demoted into more of a, developmental role. Not to say that we could see him pitch. We're not going to see him pitch in an SEC game. I think we probably will at some point, just based on matchups or whatever. But I think they're just more comfortable with pitching Primo in those spots, which is a little bit. I kind of agree with you. It was a little bit surprising to me just because I thought Cooper Williams was going to be that guy for this team. But he had a pretty good Friday outing. I just don't know how effective he's going to be the second time you pitch him in 2 days, the third time you pitch him in 3 days. And I know, like Missouri had those 3 straight lefties in the lineup. It was really 5 straight because they had a switch hitter in the 2-hole. But I think they wanted that guy to stay on the right side. So I think this is why you kept on seeing Primo coming into games, because Missouri had those stretch lefties and they didn't want to take any of those guys out. So, and it was, pretty mixed results, especially after that pretty good Friday outing. So, he threw a lot of strikes in the Cape League, and I thought that was a pretty good sign for him heading into this season. He pitched well in the Cape League against those wood bats, but he's. I think it's been a little bit rocky, especially with the hit by pitches, and with the walks so far this season with him.
Let's talk about Kason Evans and kind of your interactions with him. I know you wrote a story on him for The Advocate, and his role now as he's the back end guy at this point. How do you feel about that?
He's deserved it. He's earned it. He's just pitched that well, right? This is a guy who has a fastball that's 98, 99 miles an hour, sits in the mid-90s, has a really nasty slider. I was talking with one scout who was very, very pumped about just his arm speed and just his ability to really generate spin and velocity just through his physical abilities. He's a really good athlete, obviously. So obviously you saw in that Saturday game against Missouri that he's got the mindset, the mentality, to make up kind of the lack of experience to pitch in those big outings, those big spots. And, Missouri's offense looked a little bit better than I thought it would, but he also pitched well against DBU, and he also pitched fairly well against Kansas State, and those are even better offenses than Missouri. So I don't really see a reason why he's not going to be in these sort of big roles. And he might give up a run here or run there if he's not if the luck isn't on his side, as it might have been against Missouri, as it was in that Kansas State game a little bit, where there's traffic on the bases and no one scores. So I don't expect perfection from him, but at the same time, he's definitely good enough to be in this role, and I expect him to stay there.
Koki Riley is our guest, covers the LSU baseball team for The Advocate, headed to Austin, Texas this weekend for LSU and the Longhorns. SEC opener for Dish Falk Field. You got a key or two for this weekend for LSU as they head to Lone Star State again?
Yeah. I think you need those starters to go a little bit longer and to just, keep the damage to a minimum. I think LSU has the advantage when it comes to the pitching depth side of things, but do you really want to be relying on your bullpen for 5+ innings for 2 games in a row when you're playing in a park where I think there could be some offense, not necessarily from a home run standpoint, but just from a balls in play standpoint, because you're playing in the turf field. Then the conditions are going to be pretty fair, so the ball could travel a little bit better, even though, again, that park's bigger. So it's different than a lot of other SEC parks where it's going to be pretty friendly to flyouts instead of home runs. So that's something to definitely keep an eye on. And if you're LSU's offense, you just got to keep on doing what you've been doing. And because if you just do that, then you're going to get these Texas starters out early in the game. You're going to get guys on base. And if you do that, you kind of get into the belly of that Texas bullpen. And it's a Texas rotation and pitching staff that just isn't as deep as LSU's. And what really helped them against Mississippi State was the doubleheader, because it was 2 7-inning games. They didn't have to go into their bullpen as much.
Yeah.
But as long as there's no 7-inning doubleheader this week, they're probably not going to have that protection. And then last night, Andre Duplantier, one of their better relievers, was warming up, and he didn't even throw a pitch in the game because he had to come out for, I guess, some sort of apparent injury, and he's one of their better relievers. And they also pitched another one of their better relievers last night, Ruger Riojas. He threw 5 innings and 55 pitchers or something like that. So that was 4 innings and 55 pitches. I don't know if he'll be available this weekend. So their bullpen's in a bit of a touch and go spot. So if you can get the starter out relatively early, you're probably going to be in a pretty good spot in the game, and I think that's going to be kind of the key this weekend for both teams.
Safe travels over there. We'll talk next week. Thanks, Koki.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
He is Koki Riley of The Advocate covering the LSU beat. He's with us every single Wednesday. We'll take a timeout, come back with What If Wednesday. It's next on The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Our bathtub is getting double the duty these days with the Keller man and the Myers man taking baths. So we got to have ours. You may not need yours. If you don't ever take a bath and you've got a bathtub and it just sits there and you stand in it to take a shower, it's kind of dingy or maybe not quite as functional as you'd like, get rid of it. Tub to shower conversion. David Duvall and his team do that kind of work all the time. Take the dingy old bathtub out, you put in a gorgeous new glass walk-in shower, totally changes the look of your bathroom and functionality of your bathroom as well. Plus, it adds a little bit of value to your home. Check out the pictures of their great work at OneBathAndClosets.com. You can see them. They're all right there. They're customized. They're gorgeous. You can see the pictures. They're right there. OneBathAndClosets.com. And you can request that free consultation with David Duvall and his team. It's One Bath and Closets. You can find them online at OneBathAndClosets.com. OneBathAndClosets.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
All right, does Jaxson Dart make sense for the Saints? We'll talk about that in the next segment. We got a lot to get to in hour number 2 as well. We'll get to SEC baseball power rankings. Matthew Bruni will join us as well. I got more thoughts on LSU and UNO, specifically on the offensive side of things. So we'll do all of that over the next hour and 30 minutes-ish. But right now, let's do What If Wednesday.
Time, space, reality. It's more than a linear path. Where a single choice can branch out into infinite realities. Follow me and ponder the question, what if?
Alrighty, first one here. What if New Orleans got a hockey team?
I just don't think it makes any sense at all. I just don't understand it. Like, this is not a hockey culture. I realize that Phoenix and Miami aren't hockey cultures either. Neither was Vegas. But, like, nobody down here knows the rules to hockey. Like,
You think that many people knew the rules to hockey in Florida?
I think more. They have more. There are more
There's
humans.
more people in Florida, yeah.
We can't even support an NBA team. There's no one there.
Because they stink.
I mean, you think the hockey team's going to be awesome?
I don't know. Well, the Vegas Knights won the Stanley Cup in a couple of years.
And it's a small market that doesn't know the rules of the sport. Like, I have no doubt the first game would be sold out. But, like, it would dissipate. Like, people are not going to get behind a hockey team here. I'm not really sure who's making these calls. Like, it'd be one thing if, like, Vegas is exploding as a city. So if you put it there, there's so many people there, like, there's a gambling culture and a vacation culture, and, like, I don't see how a reasonable person is going to get up there and outline a scenario where New Orleans just gets so hardcore behind a hockey team. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I think
I can't name one person, not one person that I'm closely associated with that watches 2 hockey games a week. Not one.
well, then you're talking to one.
You do not. I don't believe you.
I do.
There's no chance of that. While you're watching Ohio basketball, you're also watching hockey.
I told you.
Chasing the chickens in the backyard.
I've told you before that I am a New Jersey Devils fan.
That's incorrect. Who's their head coach?
Oh my gosh.
Beck! This is what I'm talking about. You can claim that you have watched some Devils games over your time.
No,
you cannot claim to be a fan of a team if you don't know who their coach is.
I can name you like 10 players.
Not important. I want to know who the coach is.
Okay.
Exactly. You have to side with me on this. You have to go, yeah, you kind of got me there.
Well, okay, whatever. Nobody really cares about head coaches in hockey because they switch coaches every year or two because they get fired.
Yeah, nobody cares. I got it. I'm thinking a lot of folks up there in Trenton can tell me who the coach of the Devils is.
Probably so.
Probably so. It's a stupid idea is what it is. It's a stupid idea.
All right, next one. What if you got to name the hockey team?
I'm so bad at this because I don't want to get, I love stupid minor league baseball teams names because that's like the Trash Pandas and the Lug Nuts. Like that all makes sense to me because it's a niche thing where you're trying to be all entertainment. If you're going to be an NHL team, an NBA team, an NFL team, the name needs to like be able to be taken seriously. So like I don't want to do like the River Lobsters or something to like make fun of crawfish. Like I don't need the voodoo they've already had. I feel like because there are a lot of NHL teams that don't have S on the name of their team, that Jazz makes a ton of sense, even though there already is a Jazz, but that doesn't stop the Rangers and the Giants across sports, and like the Kings and the Kings across sports. You could do that. I think the Jazz makes a lot of sense. I also like, does it have to be New Orleans? Like, could it be Louisiana? And then I like made a stupid Google search. It's like, what animals in Louisiana? Like, I've lived here my whole life. And like black bears on there, like Louisiana black bears. Like, I don't know. That's got Ole Miss vibes to it.
Yeah.
I'm bad at this, and I don't. If they do get an NHL team, I don't want them to come up with some dumb name for them, like the baby cakes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't work in a real to be taken seriously championship contending organization, not like a minor league team. So like I would probably go Jazz if they asked me to do it, which is not original because clearly they already had it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if I guess
The Crew.
could they be the Jazz? I guess they could.
Yeah, I just laid
Even
out
though
all
it was
those
the
ones.
NBA team,
yeah, I mean, it's the Rangers and the Rangers in hockey, and the Kings and the Kings, and Giants and Giants. Like
I would do that. I would say that would be good. I would take that. But I don't know, man.
For what it's worth, I think the team name and the color scheme for Pelicans both works. I think they did a good job. It's always going to be weird the first time you brought it up. If somebody told me that they were gonna build have a new team and they were gonna call it the 49ers, like you'd be like, the what?
Yeah.
And I realize that the gold rush and the whole deal, but like everything's gonna sound weird the first time you hear it. I think Pelicans works. I would probably go with Jazz.
All right, next one. We got some in the chat here. It's from Dustin. What if Hunt got to play 17 at Sawgrass with the winds that were blowing this weekend? How many Pro V1s is Hunt putting in the water?
Man, I'd like to have confidence in myself. It's an 8-iron, 9-iron.
With the wind, yeah.
But the wind's an issue, and I'm a very bad iron player these days, so I think I would put 2 in the water.
Wow.
I think if you gave me a 1-in-3 shot, I think I could hit the green, but I need 3. I probably need 3 golf balls.
Yeah,
how many do you need, Beck?
So. Oh gosh, I'm actually not. I'm pretty okay with my shorter irons.
I think you're talking about 150 yards, depending on where the tee is and where the pin is.
I'm okay with shorter irons. It would probably take me 3 or 4, but I mean, maybe. I mean, I don't know. Maybe after the first one or first 2, you kind of figure it out. But it would definitely be the chances of me getting within the first few is not great. Next one here. What if the Cubs play in the Tokyo? What is it? It just says Tokyo.
If they play it again?
Oh, if they play it again, yeah.
Then don't play the Dodgers.
Yeah, that would be nice.
They need to play the A's.
Well, didn't they play in it last year or a year
they
before?
played in London against the Cardinals.
That's right.
Yeah, if you want to play the poverty-riddled Cardinals, that's fine with me.
Yes.
I'm not playing the Dodgers in Tokyo at 4 o'clock in the morning anymore. I figured this out. There's a reason why we play sports at night. It's not because that's when everybody's off work and can go enjoy themselves and have a beverage. We play sports at night so it doesn't ruin your entire day after your team loses at 5 o'clock in the morning. Because that's what I've been dealing about with for 2 days. And that is not a good way to start the day. Come out there, just watch your team get annihilated and then go about your day. That's not fun. We got to do that at the end so you can just go to sleep, forget about it, and get up for a new day.
That would be nice.
It's like 10 hours of walking around in misery after the Cubs get destroyed 2 days in a row.
All right, let's see if we got any more in the chat.
If we don't, that's good, because I got to talk about Jaxson Dart.
Yep. All right, I think that's it.
All right, let's talk about Jaxson Dart. We'll do that to finish out the hour coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com is that website. Every car that is on the lot is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. Sedan all the way up to SUV. No matter what you're looking for, whatever fits your family or your personal needs, Genesis can make it happen. When I say Genesis, you should think luxury. Get behind the wheel. You'll see it is. And I'll tell you that when I say luxury, a lot of folks think of different brands. A lot of folks go, well, I can't really, it's out of my price range. Well, you don't know what it costs. Get it by Genesis of Baton Rouge and check it out. It's a luxury brand, a luxury experience at a reasonable price. That's the Genesis model. They're airline in Pico. If you're on Airline Highway, just make one more stop in your car buying trip and see Genesis of Baton Rouge. Check out one of their brand ambassadors, get behind the wheel, and see the Genesis difference. Genesis of Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
All right, we'll close out the hour here talking a little bit of New Orleans Saints. I think by now almost everyone is aware that Mel Kiper has mocked Jaxson Dart to the Saints and has given a lot of reasons for that. And one, you got a new coaching staff that's very offensive that wants to pick their quarterback. You got an opportunity to let him sit there behind a veteran in Derek Carr and take over the reins potentially in year two. We watched a ton of Jaxson Dart here over the last 3 years, and I didn't think he was great 2 years ago. I thought the last 2 years he was damn good college football player. I thought he was productive. I thought he was sneakily athletic. I thought he had decent arm, decent size. Nothing pops with Jaxson Dart. I just thought he was a damn good college football player. And when I think about him as the 9th pick in the draft, I consider him a really, really, really high risk. Part of that is because of his skill set, which I find to be solid and unspectacular. And part of that is because of the position he plays, where most quarterbacks you pick are busts. That's just the reality. Most quarterbacks selected, even in the first round, don't work. It's such a low hit rate. And to me, the Saints right now are in a position where they need to hit on early round draft picks that play across the field and don't make a ton of money. And so while, yes, quarterback remains the most important position in the sport, I look at Jaxson Dart, and he's too close to Spencer Rattler for me to feel like I need to take a first-round top 10 selection on him. Like, when I look at the best quarterbacks across the NFL, I don't get a lot of Jaxson Dart vibes from them. Jaxson Dart does not play like Lamar Jackson. He does not play like Joe Burrow at that level that Joe did in college. He does not play like Josh Allen. He does not play like Patrick Mahomes. He does not play, like, if you want to toss Justin Herbert in that conversation, he doesn't play like Jalen Hurts. Like, he plays like Spencer Rattler. Like, Spencer Rattler had some good years. Now, I think that when I look at Lane Kiffin coaching Jaxson Dart for 3 years, he probably had a better situation than what Spencer Rattler had. Early in his career, he did have Lincoln Riley, and they were okay, and then he got benched for Caleb Williams, and then he went to South Carolina, and he was decent there, and probably wasn't as good as Jaxson Dart, but their skill sets are fairly similar. They don't have elite size. They don't have an elite arm. It's good. They were highly thought of high school players that have some tools, but if you tell me the Saints drafted Jaxson Dart at the end of the 3rd round, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. If you told me they drafted him where the Saints drafted Spencer Rattler, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. But when you've got a roster that's just riddled with holes, like the Saints have, you need to start filling those holes with some guys that you're really confident can do that. And Jaxson Dart cannot be a guy that you feel like is the 12-year starter for your franchise. Again, I'm not ruling his NFL career out as we sit here today, and I think he had a really nice college career. This is not an LSU Ole Miss thing. This is covering the Saints. As an LSU guy, I don't want Jaxson Dart back at Ole Miss. I think he's really good. But the confidence level you would have in him coming in and being a franchise guy has got to be low based on his skill set and the pick, like the position. So give me an edge rusher. Give me an interior offensive lineman. Give me a high-level interior defensive lineman. Give me a corner. Like, give me somebody that you feel better about than a quarterback who's going to come in and sit on the bench for the first year. I just don't think the Saints are in that position right now. This is less to do with Jaxson Dart and more to do with where the Saints are drafting and what their roster looks like. There may be some teams that it makes a lot of sense to draft Jaxson Dart 25th overall, whoever has that pick. Maybe your roster is in such good shape, your quarterback's aging a little bit, and you're doing what some teams have done in the past. And you're taking Dak Prescott when you have Tony Romo, and you're taking Aaron Rodgers when you've got Brett Favre, and you're taking Michael Penix when you've got Kirk Cousins. And you could make that case for Derek Carr being older and Spencer and Jaxson Dart being there, but you've already got Spencer Rattler. And I just feel like the Saints roster has so many holes. You need to fill one at 9. And Jaxson Dart just isn't that guy. This is one of those points that I could make a complete 180 on and argue the other side and probably be fairly convincing to do it, but it would be disingenuous. Like, that's not the direction the organization needs to go. You cannot be taking massive risks at 9. The Chiefs probably can. The Eagles probably can. There was a time there where I thought the 49ers probably could. Now, they took a step back last year, but like when you've got a roster that's just loaded, you can take a big swing. The Saints are the opposite of that. They got a Swiss cheese roster that needs to be filled in now, and Jaxson Dart doesn't fill any of those other holes. If he's still there in the 3rd round, fire away. For now, if you're betting on a young quarterback on the come who's cheap, bet on Spencer Rattler, see what this staff can do with him, and then see if he's the next guy after Derek Carr. I think all of us kind of sit back and go, well, hopefully they win 4 games this year and they get to pick in the top 3 next year. Then there will be a quarterback. But 9, Jaxson Dart, I'm out. If you're looking for our Saints coverage, you can always find it at Hunt on Saints on YouTube or wherever you find your podcasts. LouisianaSports.net, Ross Jackson is all over them as well. That's it for hour number 1. If you missed any of it, you can catch it on demand wherever you find your sound. Search Hunt Palmer Show. We got tons to do in hour number 2. Lots to do. Matthew Bruni talking hoops, LSU UNO baseball from last night, SEC baseball power rankings. We'll step aside for Sports Center. Come back with us on a Wednesday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com is that website. And we just talked about playing TPC Sawgrass and whether or not you could hit it on the green. Well, you could try that on a simulator. If you would like to look into getting a golf simulator put in at your home, Mitchell Fisher and the team at Audio Video Security Solutions can do that. They have done it in the Baton Rouge area. You've got to supply it, but they'll install the entire thing for you. So if you don't even know where to start, you're thinking, I'd like to play some golf inside, especially in the winter months or when it's 9,000 degrees outside and I don't have time to run out to sweat at the driving range, but I'd like to get some work done on my golf game. Audio Video Security Solutions can help you with it. You give Mitchell Fisher a call. Got his cell phone number right here, 225-439-7920, 225-439-7920. Give him a call. He'll be your point person. No better way to work with folks and work with small businesses right here in the Baton Rouge area. It's Audio Video Security Solutions online at avssla.com.